All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a genuinely fascinating essay originating from the founder of Lifechanyuan, Guide Suifeng, or as it's known in the original text, Lifechanyuan Sui Zhafeng. We're going to examine the exact cultural foundations he claims are the bedrock of his utopian community. You know, whether you approach this from a sociological, philosophical, or just a strictly historical perspective, the framework he lays out here is incredibly fascinating to dissect.
So he hooks us right from the jump with this really bold challenge. Can 100 absolute strangers, people from entirely different backgrounds, actually live together happily? And we're talking without conflict, without theft, and get this, without any compulsory rules? I mean, given human nature, it sounds literally impossible, right? But Guide Suifeng claims to have not only cracked the code here, but actually lived it.
Which brings us to Section 1, Culture and the Soul.
To understand how Suifeng claims this level of harmony is even possible, we really have to look at the absolute foundation of his philosophy. He argues that culture isn't just about, art or tradition, it's the literal nourishment of the human soul. He draws this very direct input-output relationship. Basically, an ugly and barbaric culture is going to beget ugly and barbaric souls. But on the flip side, an elegant, civilized culture naturally produces cultured and refined souls. It's like a direct feed. To back this up, the text actually quotes Christ Jesus from the book of Luke, asserting that a good tree simply cannot produce bad fruit. Suifeng uses this to argue that if you just observe a group's behavior, their speech, their living conditions, that completely reveals the true nature of their underlying culture. Essentially, if the people are acting beautifully and living without conflict, well, the culture producing that behavior must inherently be beautiful.
Moving on to Section 2, the second home community.
So how is this philosophy actually applied on the ground? Well, the text points to the second home community, noting that hundreds of people, who are referred to as Chanyan Celestials, have been living this beautiful community life for over a decade. Suifeng points out that they've remained completely steadfast in their faith and their original intentions. They are completely unshaken, even after facing more than 10 years of trials and tribulations.
And Suifeng highlights this extreme diversity as irrefutable proof of their highly civilized culture. I mean, look at this mix. You have Christians, Buddhists, Taoists, Muslims, and Communist Party members. You have urban professionals living right alongside rural folks, entrepreneurs next to the impoverished, PhD students and the uneducated, 80-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And they reportedly live together with daily laughter, mutual respect, and total freedom. It's quite the melting pot.
Which naturally leads us to the operational claim of the second home. Like, how does it actually function day to day? According to the text, it's all through voluntary harmony. Step 1 is entirely voluntary creative labor. No one's forced to do anything. Step 2 requires 0 administrative commands or compulsory measures to enforce that labor. And Step 3 is the payoff, a society with 0 theft, 0 corruption, poverty, or laziness. Basically, the culture itself acts as the only manager they need.
All right, let's zoom out a bit for Section 3, Surpassing Historical Utopias. Now that we understand the internal mechanics, let's see how this scales up. Suifeng explicitly compares his community to famous historical utopias. He places Lifechanyuan's second home right next to Robert Owen's famous 19th century New Harmony village in the United States, and he boldly claims his community surpasses Owen's by 100-fold. And the sole reason he gives for this massive success? Their incredibly rich cultural heritage.
Because of this, the essay defines the community using some incredibly grand labels. Suifeng presents it as genuine communism, though to be clear, he is very quick to note this is entirely distinct from anything discussed or practiced in modern history. It's totally different. He also describes the community as a replication of heavenly life, a paradise on earth, and the kingdom of the greatest creator.
So where does this come from? That's Section 4, Synthesizing Global Philosophies.
So what exactly makes up this rich, foundational culture that allows for such massive historical claims? Well, according to the text, the community's culture is a massive synthesis. It actively combines the teachings of major global religious figures. We're talking Christ Jesus, Buddha Shakyamuni, Celestial Laozi, and the Prophet Muhammad. But it doesn't stop at religion. No, it merges these spiritual figures with broad secular disciplines like philosophy, science, art, and the humanities. It's essentially an attempt to pull the very best from every single corner of human thought. And that brings us to our final big concept, Section 5, Universal Cosmic Values.
We're moving from earthly utopias to the ultimate macro scale now. Suifeng calls his system heavenly culture, and he envisions it not just as a local community guideline, but as a universal framework.
As defined here, it's a culture suitable for literally any nationality, religion, or political system on Earth. But it goes even further than that. He claims it is applicable across the vast universe, stretching from hell all the way up to heaven and even into Buddhist paradises.
To really emphasize this truly cosmic scale, the text uses this highly specific, almost mathematical terminology. It asserts his system's relevance extends from what he calls the XYZ world to the negative XYZ world. It's an incredibly abstract way to express total, universal applicability across all dimensions of existence. Basically, he's borrowing scientific-sounding structures to lend the philosophy this grand air of cosmic universalism.
And within this heavenly contra, the essay introduces some pretty highly theoretical concepts like horizontal space-time. Now, while the actual physics of this aren't deeply detailed in the essay, Xu argues that their unique explanation of time and space is actually incredibly down-to-earth. He says it's closer to human nature, closer to the facts, and perfectly applicable to everyday life. It's just another prime example of using scientific vocabulary to structure and support their spiritual claims.
Because of this profound depth, the essay draws a very stark line. Xu asserts, and I quote, "Without an understanding of Chanyuan culture, regardless of who you are essentially a primitive person." He's arguing that true civilization absolutely requires an understanding of this specific, synthesized culture. Anyone outside of it is, by his strict definition, lacking true refinement.
Now, while our explainer today has focused almost entirely on the cultural aspect, as laid out in the essay, Sun Feng makes sure to remind readers that the beauty of their community life ultimately relies on all 5 of these interconnected factors: cultural, material, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Culture is the foundational piece, absolutely, but it has to work in tandem with the rest to really sustain the community.
So we're going to leave you with this final, genuinely provocative thought. Xu openly invites the world, religious masters, political leaders, scientific experts, and philosophical giants to come and try to refute his transparent, open system. He boldly states, if someone can overturn Chanyuan culture, they are like gods. It definitely leaves us wondering, with all its synthesized philosophies and cosmic claims, could this blueprint for utopia ever truly hold up on a global scale? Think on that and keep exploring.